Oh, good morning, boys. I'm going to do this one into one take again because, this is not the sixth time I've tried to record it. Hey, boys, I've got another double Billy build for you. This is a Zeal Barbarian that I've been working on. So, if you boys are old frogs, you've been here for a while, I made one of these, I think. It must have been, like, pre-Sunder Charms. It was pre a lot of, like, the Wisdom Rune Word and stuff like that. So, there's definitely, it's definitely overdue for a bit of an update on this thing. So, you guys know that I love this rune word Passion, because it gives you the O skill of Zeal. You can put it on anything. You can put it on a Dual Dream Sorceress. You can put it on a goddamn Amazon, like a build video of mine, which I covered recently, which was surprisingly well. But when I'm not kidding, the first Passion build I made was a Barbarian. It was. I fledged it out quite a bit. I enjoyed it, and it's about time we covered it again. And this is even better. It's even stronger. I think you guys will enjoy it. If you like Zeal, if you like a different type of playstyle, this is quite good. So we're going to be using Zeal on Passion. I'll get into the gear later, but Scourge is actually the best base for this. We'll talk about it further on. We're gonna have access to Metamorph and Beast on switch, so we can get Mark of the Bear, we get attack speed, damage reduction, we switch back, we have max 5 APS with Zeal, so 5 hits per second when we're Zealing. That's very important to maximize our DPS. We're going to be utilizing different skills, such as Grimoire is maxed out for higher damage dealing than the curse amplified damage itself. We have Warcry given to us by the base. What else can I mention here before we yap on? And we also can use Berserk, because we have Battle Order synergy towards it, and that +1 is also coming from Passion itself. Okay, so that's a little rundown for you now. Before we get into it, I'll show you a little bit of gameplay. I'll go through in depth the stats, skills, and gear, because I enjoy doing that rambling. If you're not a fan of that, just click through near the end of the video and just watch some gameplay. That's cool, boys. Okay, but there you go. Alright, so with this sort of stuff on, we're looking at 3k life, which is a good minimum, and who cares about the mana. I have Decrepify on the Mercenary. Now, I know that does override with the fear aspect of Grim Ward if I use that here. But it's fine. We can talk about that further. Give me an elite back. There we go. This is players 1 at the moment. We can go through and kill Bale later on. Hopefully the loading screens aren't going to be too bad, but there could be something we can try. Here we are. Let's use Grimoire. Remember, Warcry is actually quite good when using with Grimoire, so you can teleport in, stun them, they're not going to go anywhere, and the stun does not override the fear itself, because if they're not feared, they're not getting that extra damage return, Let's go to town. Let's dive in, boys, and get nice and sweaty, because we love talking about the specs, don't we? We love it. Now, we'll start off here, a little bit weirder. Now, our strength is very high, so we are using Enigma, which gives us a good chunk, but there's very few builds I've seen where a high priority is to bump up the strength for all excess points to bump up the physical damage, and this build is one of those. So I recommend with battle orders and after charms, depending on what you have, 3000, cut it there. This build has very high survivability. As you see, we are accessing Mark of the Bear to get 20 damage reduction. We have good hit recovery. Our base stats are fine. We have max fire res from Phoenix and other bits of gear. We have Grimoire 2. We have Redemption on here. So we do not need high life. I can even drop this lower and put more into strength. So maximizing your damage here is very worthwhile, and I'd highly recommend it. Dexterity. This needs to be comfortably high. I would say at about 8,000 minimum. If you're doing more of like Bale clears or single target, you want to do like boss finishing, definitely bump this a bit higher. 9,000, closer to 10 would be fine. I don't know if I have Lava Gouts in here. I do not, sorry. But you can cast enchant. I think it's like 2%. 2% level 10 enchant from those Lava Gout gloves is a good option, and you can just switch back to Laying of Hands. Alternatively, you've got Demon Limb as well, which you can put next to your beast here instead of a Hoto. That is a good option to save you switching out. So I've got 9k, we'll move on. Vitality is minimum, boys. Okay, as I said before, put as little as you can into here, the rest into strength. Okay, res is fine, not too worried about cold and poison. Again, our survivability is very high with this. Okay, skills. Combat skills. We have 1 into Berserk only that's given to us by the Passion Rune Word, which is beautiful. So we have Battle Orders maxed out, which I'll show in War Cries here, so we still get a decent amount of damage from this. If I go switch that to my right skill, I can show you what that is on my sheet DPS. So over 5k. It's like, it's not crazy, we're not a full Berserk Barbarian, but it's enough to utilize against high physical resistant mobs, and I find that I do use it. Hands down. So it does actually have a part in the build. Mace Mastery, because we're using our Scourge and it's a mace type, we've got 1-point wonders all down here. I've got a couple of extras into natural res, that's up to you. Bear in mind, putting skill points in here has severe diminishing returns, so base that on what gear and charms you have accordingly. Okay? War Cries. So we have all of the shouts down here, all of the War Cries. So we've got 1 Howl, we've got Max and a Shout, we've got Max and Battle Orders, 1 in Battle Command. You don't have to do Max Shout. I opted for doing that. I didn't need anything else, and Natural Res has severe diminishing returns, and I felt that the build performed better with increased Shout rather than Natural Res. Alongside that, we have Max Find Potion and Grimoire, 1 into Find Item, right? So this is going to increase our base Find Item rate up to 61%, so that's beautiful, we can utilize that. And we have Grimoire. So this is situational. If you boys haven't used Grimoire too much, that's fine. When you do use it, it fears everything outside of that radius. It's a little bit difficult to use. I don't always use it on this build. That is why I have Reaper's Toll Mercenary. So they do conflict. We can't have Decrepify and we cannot have the damage of Grimoire together on one mob. It's either one or the other. The reason why I have both is because Grimoire is great survivability. It just fears everything in the radius. It allows us to safely teleport through, Warcry, stun packs, and to really kill whatever we want safely across a whole area. When it comes to Decrepify on the Reaper's Toll, that is all our single target when we're teleporting in. So when we're versing Baal, if we're versing Diablo, there's no mobs that we can Grimoire to apply a fear buff. Even if we could, you can't apply that buff towards like elite champions and boss types. So this is only for other little shitters and smaller groups, okay? So, single target, AoE. Over here we have access to Warcry. As I shown a little bit in the gameplay, when you're using Grimoire, the more plus skills you have in this, the more it increases the slow radius. So as soon as you use it, it disperses all the density, so that's cringe in itself, and that's why not many people use the goddamn thing. But the way to counteract, the way to limit the effects of that is using Enigma and having Warcry. So you can teleport through, stun them when they're spreading out, but you can also stun them first, use Grimoire, and then as long as that stun duration persists, which is 3 seconds with our plus skills, you don't have to worry about that density splitting off. I have a few videos in the past where I covered a Warcry build utilizing Grimoire to a degree in Cows, maybe I'll cover it again one time, but yeah, hopefully that, you know, kind of puts it in perspective for you. Let's talk about the gear now. So, I have been through all the options of bases. This is the best one. So, with our attack speed that we're getting specifically from this Metamorph Mark of the Bear buff for 25, when we switch back here with our Zeal, we are hitting 5 hits per second with Zeal. We want to hit that limit. Now, if we go for Phase Blade, sure, it's got like no durability. We can hit 5 frames easier. If you want to switch out some pieces of gear, you can. but with what we have and what we want to run for physical damage, this is the best. Some people don't like Scourge because it has a low minimum hit rate, which you can see above me on the sheet DPS, and quite high. But, you know, if you cut that down to the average, it is pretty high. Pretty high consistent average damage, pretty high amount of durability on an elite base. It's just a lock-in with 50% damage to undead because it's on a mace type. So this is your best in slot for here, unless you want to do specifically a phase blade and switch out your, you know, attack speed gear on other pieces to maintain 5 hits per second, because you won't need these, or you wouldn't even need Metamorph, right? You could switch that out even further and get like 40 ED joules, and that could be a little bit more viable. But assuming this is the same set, if you switch this hand in hand out for a Passion Phase Blade, we're losing 3k average damage per second, so let's just not. Let's move on. Metamorph in here is beautiful. It gives us another access to Cannot Be Frozen, although I am using... No, I'm not using Ravenfrost. We're switching it out. So, Cannot Be Frozen is here, so we're not locked into a Ravenfrost ring, and we can get other options there, such as we need for our cast rate. Okay, so we need 10, 10, and then 20 to reach 37 FCR, so we have decent frames when teleporting with our damage kit in hand. Okay, now everything else on here is beautiful for a melee type build. When we're switching into our beast to cast, we're going to get 20 damage reduction and 25 attack speed. So with the good chunk of damage reduction is why I want to just use this for the sake of it. So the Bone Break is going to really get rid of that physical immunity. We do have Grimoire, we have Decrepify, there's no problem with any of those. We also have Berserk as well. If anything, we probably don't even need this with everything else we have, but I like having it as an option, and it's kind of handy. Moving on. So, High Lords is pretty predictable. I showed Laying of Hands as well, damage to demons. We want to amp up the physical damage. The 2 rings and the belt is a lock-in. This is where I'm getting the cast rate. I know these rings are crazy, but I wanted to put typical stats that you'd want to find here on this ring. So, obviously, not everyone's going to have everything that's on the ring, but that's the stats that you would want to aim for if there was on there. So, something with Mana Steal on one or Life Steal on the other would be great to have that complementary. FCR is an absolute must, and I would highly recommend attack rating. So, bare minimum on these, I would say 1 FCR, some attack rating would be handy, but some type of life steal, really. You could get away with having no res, so FCR mana, FCR life steal, and you're probably good to go, boys. Gore Riders, and then it gets us to the shield. So, a shield weapon Barbarian is so cool, and this is one of the best ways we can get it to run. So, 400 ED on this absolute slapper, so that's going to really bump up our Zeal. Redemption is amazing to keep us going. We've got defense versus missile, you know, max lightning res and fire absorb. It's just a beautiful shield all round. Okay, on switch we've got our Hoto, so I can cast, but typically that's just there just to bump up my battle orders and things on switch. And also my shout is a little bit higher as well, so I felt like it was a little bit more beneficial instead of going for a demon limb. This just leaves our beast, to be honest, and the base doesn't even matter. We don't even hit with it, really. I just, you know, put in Mark of the Bear and then go back. That's it. So, down here, I'm missing my Annihilus Small Charm, I know. Don't cry. So, my res can be a little bit higher, and my attributes will be slightly higher. But I've got my 2020 Torch, I've got 3 2020s, that's ideally what you would want. You've got other Grand Charms with life and hit recovery and a Bone Break there. Pretty standard melee kit on what you would want to aim for, that is there. Over to the Mercenary. We've got Might Mercenary for damage, that's to no surprise. We want to amp up physical as much as possible. So we leave him with Fortitude and Dariel's with +2 and Lifesteal. Not that +2 is a varied roll, but it's important to bump up the Might Aura as well, which some people don't really consider. It's just like, I want a big slapping thing with attack speed and lifesteal, but you know, it is viable getting 2 more skills to bump up our damage, not just his. Reaper's Toll with Shale, or if you've got increased attack speed duel, that is fine. So that is really the whole build in a nutshell of everything that's on there. So I'm going to go straight into some gameplay now and we'll show you. I should put some timestamp markers because I've been rambling for so long, but yeah. There we go. I like teleporting in and using Warcry. If I need to use, you know, Grim Ward, then we can do so right after that fact. So right here. Feared and Stun consist together, and then it splits apart. We do have Redemption as well, so I mean it is. We do have a few things that are contradictory to actually using Grim Ward. So I understand if you don't even want this on the build entirely, and we could cut it out. I mean, if we did cut out that, it would leave a lot of spare points to choose on what you want to do. You could max out Howl as an option, would be very nice. That's going to add a synergy to Warcry, but more importantly, add a synergy to Berserk skill as well, so you don't have to put max points into that thing without getting all the synergies forward. Different options on how you want to build it. It's kind of fun because our main, you know, skill of choice is Zeal, which we don't need access in the combat tree for. So you can just put more into your defensive playstyle and just really lean into that. So let's switch this to, there we go, Berserk, go. Let's go over to this, we'll get our Mark of the Bear up, going back in, switch back and we're on. Also, to cast, we have access to Heart of the Wolverine at level 3. If we want to use that, we can. I mean, it will die pretty quickly, so you can hotkey it if you'd like, but that will bump up our attack rating to 98. Where we showed prior was about 90. Oh, sorry, 9k. I said 98. But yeah, he dies just like that. Not something I've used, and not really something I've used in teleporting, like, I guess, elite hunting type builds like this. Because when you teleport in, you're just repositioning your charged mob, and they're just going to die straight away, so it's a little bit sad. There is builds where it is viable though, you know? Like, it'd be nice if an item like the Rune Word Death, if you could, you know, recharge the Blood Golem skills and actually use that a little bit more. Or a weapon like Eternity Rune Word, you know, things like that. But don't, you know, consider using some of the charges where you can, just being mindful of, you know, repair and recharge costs and things. I think you need like Riles and Orts and P-Gems, some of those, so although it's not something that's very common that people use when playing through, it still can be utilized, and if you enjoy doing it, then go for it, you know, chuck a little Heart of the Wolverine out, chuck a little Golem out if you got access to it. Makes it unique. So now we're in Throne Room. A few different alternatives we can do is switch out the cast rate and go straight for a Fortitude, and might as well get rid of the Arachnid Mesh and put on something like a String of Ears. So this is going to increase our physical damage up to over 5k, as you saw before. Let's get through and finish these boys. Bear in mind, if you do switch this, you'll need to invest slightly more into combat skills down and getting leap attack. So I don't have that here because I've spec specifically into Enigma, but for the sake of this, I can keep this on and show that. I'll take that rejuve. Oh yeah. Stun first. And Zeal. Can use Berserk on this man. Very strong build. For those that are curious, Mercenary damage is 7,200 with his Might Aura up and everything. Battle Command, and his life is over 5k. Pretty reasonable, holds his own pretty steadily. One variant that I was interested in with this is going for a Pride setup on the Mercenary. and that would lead us leaning more into Grim Ward, or having something on Switch where we could proc, you know, amp damage from Lacerators or something of that line. I preferred the Reaper's Toll with the Enigma setup when I'm teleporting around. If you boys have played more of Pride and you think that that just fits your playstyle more, I'd encourage that. Go for it. Stone Skin, Berserk. There we go. Beautiful. So, I'm going to keep this set up on with Fortitude and the String of Ears, and we'll go in and we'll finish Bale, and we'll call it there. If there's other areas you want to see me farming with this build, or maybe doing some runs or something, I'd be happy to do it. I'd be happy to do that with any of my off-meta builds. If you boys want to see a little bit more, then, you know, we'll get it done. So let's switch and get our Mark of the Bear back up. Slap with that, we can see the pools underneath us rippling through. Switch back in. Let's go. Get us decrypified, big man. Attack rating against Bale is 73. I suppose, like, if we wanted to really min-max, we could go, like, War Cries and get 1 point Battle Cry just to help proc that decrypify when it does fade on the Mercenary. But it's whatever. I guess one alternative to fix that would be on Switch, instead of our Hoto and Beast, I could put my Demon Limb. You're not as inclined to use Hoto on Switch for the cast rate to teleport around if you don't have Enigma to teleport around. So, that's something to consider based on what you like to do. Nice little pack of blues. God bless. Oh, well there you go, boys. I hope you enjoyed the rambling. I really like this one. I think it's really fun. It'd be something I'd be happy to do and build through, like, a latter start maybe in the future. But yeah, let me know what you boys want to see, if anything, and I'm more than happy to rant and rave about it again. But other than that, I'll see you boys soon. Later reset when? Huh?